guys, and welcome to Transforming the Classroom Experience with the Design Thinking Process. I'm Amanda Dunham, and this is Cody Helms.
Hi.
So basically, our session is just going to go over the design thinking process and how that really fits well with PBL and project-based learning, how we use it at DBE to scaffold learning and scaffold those projects in the classroom. We'll go over some structures that you can use in each one of the design phases, and we'll show you some examples from the classroom.
The design thinking process at its core is built to create problem solvers. The world is a very complicated place with very nuanced and complicated problems, and we need problem solvers. And that's, at its core, that's what this is about. Now, I understand that some of you guys may not understand what the design thinking process is. You may already implement that, and it's my hope and my wish that wherever you fall on that spectrum, that there's going to be something meaningful and useful that you can take back to your students and take back to your coworkers at your schools to help build a positive learning environment for everyone involved. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate that.
So this is the agenda. We're just going to talk a little bit about the need for the design. We're going to do a little design challenge. We're going to talk about building the culture just for a split second, and then those strategies for each phase and some examples that we use. So before we do that, we'd like to talk to you a little bit about our school. So we're from DB Excel. We're in that northeast part of Tennessee.
Anybody know what Kingsport is? Kingsport, yeah, all right.
We are a STEM school. Our four cornerstones are we have a campus that allows for flexible scheduling. So we have students that take courses on a variety of different campuses, both online and in person, through different colleges. We have a makerspace. We have a very flexible seating arrangements. Our content is, we deliver all our content through project-based, problem-based learning, and we implement the design process into each one of our classes. We focus on relationships, and we really focus on bringing the community in and using community partners to build engagement in the classroom. And so you'll see that throughout this PowerPoint, our community partners, our STEM professionals that we bring into the classroom. Okay, so to start us out, we're going to do a little STEM challenge. So you guys have 10 minutes. You guys should have supplies, and you should have in those little baggies straws, clothespins, paper clips, bobby pins, and some masking tape. And we're just going to do a quick little design challenge to see who can build the highest tower.
So, yeah. So, those of you that may not have some of the supplies, I think it might be beneficial to, as a partner next to you, maybe discuss some of the ways that you could use these materials to implement this tallest tower activity. All right. It's got 10 minutes on the clock.
Where are we at now? Oh, that was only like 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 down. Okay.
These are our door prizes.
Cody, take some pictures. I would. I don't know where my phone's at.
Is it sitting right here?
Back here.
just call it.
Yeah.
Okay. And time.
I think we had some winners back here with the 56 and a
Yeah,
half.
that was impressive.
Woo!
All right, guys, that was excellent.
So, as we were going through this challenge, as we were going through some of this challenge, what were some of the steps that y'all went through? Brainstorming, planning, replanning, revising, improving, failure, yeah, all of those things. What was the first thing, though, that you had to communicate? You had to communicate with each other, yeah. What were the resources? Oh, that's the laser. So this is DBE's design thinking process. This is the one that we use. There are several different, versions out there. This is one that we created with the help of community partners, students, and staff. We came up with define, brainstorm, plan, create, improve, inform. And just as you guys were saying, we use a lot of 21st century skills, such as communicating, collaborating, creativity, critical thinking when we're going through this process.
Yeah, I also do want to inform you guys, it's a cyclical process. It's not linear. A lot of times they have to go back to the drawing board and improve upon their designs, improve upon their projects and presentations. So it is a cyclical process, excuse me. It's not linear. Good. Part of the reason that we use the design thinking process at DBE is the world is changing, like I mentioned earlier. Education's changing in very many ways. I've taught for, I guess this is my 11th year in education. But teaching has definitely changed, post-pandemic. And the workforce is changing as well. So the skills that they need now aren't the skills that they needed, when I was in school 30 years ago. But the skills that they need, rather than just rote memorization of facts and information, we need critical thinkers, we need problem solvers, we need them to integrate technology in the workplace on a daily basis. So this is designed to help create those type of thinkers for the future, because we don't need to be preparing them for the jobs today. We need to prepare them for careers and jobs in the future, some that haven't even been created yet. Okay.
And using the design thinking process in your classroom really lends well to these new growing demand for skills. So a lot of times at DBE when we get new teachers in, they'll say, well, I've tried to use this in my classroom, PBL, design thinking, and it didn't work. The kids weren't engaged in it, they didn't cooperate in it, they didn't engage in it. And that's really something that you have to build the culture for. So there's, we just talked about we need to normalize failure. So we do many different revisions of our assignments that they turn in. We implement mastery-based learning in our classrooms that really allow students to fail and be okay with that. You need to be focusing on those 21st century skills such as collaboration, creativity, communication, critical thinking, and modeling empathy and risk-taking in your classrooms, as well as focusing on relationships. And a lot of times the way I set the stage for these PBLs, building that culture, is through doing little things like we did today, which I call instant challenges, where they have to build the highest tower, they have to design a cable car to go across the classroom, and that really gets them engaged and using those types of thinking.
And I do want to emphasize that taking the time on the front end to establish and build these cultural norms within the classroom, within your classroom or within your school or department, is going to make the implementation of the design thinking process and these PBLs so much easier. Does that make sense? So just starting with the building of the culture is going to make everything else a lot easier.
So we're going to go through each one of the phases and just talk about some structures that you can use within each one of those phases, and hopefully that will help with the planning of PBLs, things that you can use to scaffold that end product. or that PBL learning unit. So the first stage is the define phase, and I would say that this is probably one of the most important phases. If they don't get the define phase correctly, then the whole project is going to go astray. So you could use open-ended problems such as, I believe the statewide design challenge this year for TSIN was water quality. So you could do something open-ended, or you could do something more specific. We try to make sure that it has real-world connection and that it has an engaging hook. So you really want to bring them in on that, when you're laying out the define phase, when you're laying out that problem, so that they're invested in that project, they're invested in those lessons. So some of the things that we've used is inviting in guest speakers to talk to them about maybe water quality or synthetic biology. We've had the elementary school make a video, and we've shown it to our students, inviting them to come to their classroom and make books for them to talk about environmental issues. Some of the possible structures you can put in this step, creating design briefs. So those help out tremendously. That's a really, and I'm going to talk about them here in just a minute. Researching the problem, interviewing with experts, mind mapping, empathy mapping. These are all great structures to help with defining the problem, and I'm going to go over those. So this is empathy mapping, and when you are, designing something, let's say a book for an elementary school age student, or you're coming up with like maybe a McDonald's toy for a target audience. You want to get into the minds of that target audience, and empathy mapping is a great way to do that. It just helps them to think about what they see, what they're saying, how they feel. Again, here are those design briefs, and I love starting out projects with the design brief, okay? So that's going to tell you who your clients are, so who's your target audience, who are you designing these for, a statement, so what's the problem. Typically, I'll have them write in the design solution, so like what are they actually designing. Talk about the criteria, what it should do, constraints, parameters that it needs to be within, and deliverables, so what they need to turn in for this project and key dates. And sometimes I'll do this for them, sometimes I have them make their own design briefs.
The brainstorming step of the design thinking process is really important. The students are basically generating as many ideas as they can. The time for refinement and sifting through some of the better ideas from others is later down the road. But the beginning of the brainstorming portion of this, you want quantity over quality. You want to get as many ideas and concepts out there from the students as you can. And there's lots, you guys as professional educators have your whole bag of tricks that you use for brainstorming. And I think one of the things that helps me the most is establishing, again, that culture and building in those norms that this is a judgment-free zone when we're doing these brainstorming ideas. I know there's no bad ideas. We want to get as many as we can. And I feel like a lot of times, especially teenagers, we teach high school, they are very aware of what their peers think about them and their ideas. And we want it to be as judge-free and as open, without criticism, as we can at the beginning of that process. And like I said, building those norms in, that it's okay to have these ideas, that there's no bad ideas is very important to kind of establish at the beginning. So we're working for quantity, piling on ideas. Encourage those wild ideas, okay, those off the wall. And you guys all got those students in your class that just throw crazy stuff out all the time. Sometimes they can have good ideas too. And those wild ideas is that missing piece that we need in this whole process. And I feel like those are some of the ones that come out of left field, are just that missing piece that you or their group was looking for. So encourage those wild ideas at this stage of the process. Defer judgment till a little later. Like I said, we'll refine those ideas and hone them a little later. But at the beginning of the brainstorming process, we want all ideas that we can get, and we can work with them. There's a lot of different strategies. I know Ms. Dunham uses the scamper strategy if students get hung up on ideas. you scamper. We've got a few other strategies here. I'm sure, like I said, a lot of you guys probably use these idea walls, the Post-its and the markers. Kids love that. They get up and move around, stick the things on the things. I do that digitally with like Google Jamboards. That's a good way to do that. I'm a history teacher, social studies teacher. So by the way, you can implement this in social studies. Hey, how you doing? Role storming is really big in my social studies classroom. We talk about lots of historical figures, and we read lots of primary sources from different perspectives that show their thoughts and ideas and opinions on certain subjects. And then I have the students put themselves in their shoes. Okay, so in the social studies world, role storming is really important. I remember several years ago, I had a parent, how do you expect my student to think like somebody else? Well, I think this is a good way to put yourself in their shoes and look at those multiple perspectives. Okay, this is an excellent way to do that. Mind mapping, I'm a very visual person. So this is a very visual way to organize thoughts and ideas for those visual students. So there's, like I said, you guys have your whole bag of tricks that you use. And there's tons and tons of resources out there to generate these ideas, and that's what we're doing here. That's the objective.
Okay, so during the planning stage, I'm going to talk to you guys about decision matrix, story arcs and storyboarding, technical drawings, detailed outlines. This just really sets the stage for the create phase when they're creating something. If you don't spend a whole lot of time in this, then the create phase is going to last forever and ever and ever. So I really try to emphasize this with my students. I would also recommend making sure that you have something during this planning stage that they turn into you give feedback on and give back to them. Technical drawings, so in my engineering courses, I teach biology and engineering. In my engineering courses, I'll have them actually, make multi-views, isometric drawings, tell me the dimensions of each thing before they actually start creating. Before they can even, start that create phase or that planning phase, I have them do a decision matrix. And there's lots of different ways to do this. This is the way I like to do it. We're going to give out a book today. It's called Brainstorming. There's another way in here. Lean Six Sigma has their own way of doing this decision matrix, but it's just a way to take the ideas that you have, those viable ideas that you have that you generate during that brainstorming phase, and pick which is the most viable way to go. So here's one where they had to make a carnival game. They had 4 different games. They had some criterion constraints, and they ranked each one of these ideas based on the criteria constraints, 4 being best, 1 being worst, and they totaled it up at the end. The one that has the highest ranking is the one that you go with.
And I think it's a good way to take out like a lot of the students' emotion, because sometimes they get personally invested and attached to some of those. Like, I really want to do balloon darts. Yeah. And this is a way to very objectively look at the data and say, statistically, it's not the best one to go with. So that can resolve some of that conflict sometimes.
Here's a Gantt chart. I love doing these at the very beginning of a project, even before they go through the brainstorming phase. I give them the tasks that they have, so they'll have, 1 through 14, like deliverables that they have to turn in. They have X amount of time, and they have to make a Gantt chart and map out how many days they're going to spend on this particular task at hand. And it really puts it back on the students to manage their time. So sometimes they'll, oh man, we spent 6 days during the creation phase, and we had only plan for 4. Someone's got to pick up the slack and get our presentation going.
Make up the time somewhere.
Yeah. And this is just storyboarding. You guys have probably used storyboarding before. I use these a lot with our, when we do storybooks or we do videos, stop motion videos. I just have them identify the specific milestones for each portion of that video and really plan that out. Story arcs are great for planning out stories as well. Just helping them, again, identify those milestones and realize that we don't just go from like the beginning to the climax. We have to have like leading events going to that.
Now, all of this is leading to a product. And we'll get to the implementation of that here in a minute, but they need to create some kind of product, and that can be all sorts of things. And think of this as a way for the students to really show off the hard work and the effort and dedication that they put into this project. With the create phase here, this gives them an opportunity to show mastery. It gives them an opportunity to show mastery in multiple ways other than just filling in the bubbles. And I don't want you to think of these assessments or these projects as these very small assessments. Don't put them in a box. There's lots of different ways to implement this create portion. It could take the form of like presentations, like your traditional slideshow presentations and speeches and things like that. I do lots of panel discussions and tons of Socratic seminars, and some of the best discussions happen in those Socratic seminars that I do. They're very structured, and I have very strict guidelines that we go by, and there is preparation involved, but some of the most genuine, thoughtful discussions out of these little teenagers is just amazing, and it just continues to blow my mind, some of the things that they say. So it could be one of those discussions. It could be written products. I have students that love to write and write and write and write. So it could be your traditional research reports. It could be training manuals for certain products. It could, in the STEM field, we want to see integration of media and technology. I use podcasting. I'm a sponsor of the podcast club at our school, and I've implemented some of that in my classroom. So they'll create podcasts on certain subjects. We have an excellent graphic design department at our school, and they create these beautiful, very intricate graphic design products that we put out to the community on billboards and posters and things like that. So this is a way for them to show their mastery of the content in their own unique way, and there's so much that you can do with this. I have for your kinesthetic learners, constructing like small products. Our group of students, I don't know if you noticed, like at the big presentation of the statewide design challenge, DBE students they were one of the winners for the high school, and they had created a small scale model of a creek bank for their project. So for your kinesthetic learners like to make things, I know we have a lot of those at our schools. It's an excellent opportunity for them to show those skills and passions that they have. Throughout that create process, I like to have my students create these student learning logs. This does a bunch of different stuff. Okay. One, it's going to give them an opportunity to kind of think about and synthesize the information that they've gained. It's going to help them answer some of those unanswered questions throughout this process. It's going to be that reflective piece that you need for them to reflect on their learning, to reflect on this process. And as for us as teachers, it gives us an opportunity to assess them where they are at different stages. You can use this as a formative assessment. And another component, if there's tensions within a group, you guys have a group where students don't like to get along with each other. Sorry, it's the real world. This is an opportunity for them to kind of air some of those grievances. Okay, I don't get along with Jimmy, sorry. Well, maybe we can work through that, but this is a way for them to not only reflect on the creation of the product itself, but also that social component if they're in a group setting. Does that make sense? So they can reflect on their group dynamics.
So during the improve phase, this is where I would bring in maybe some peer feedback. So typically we have students, when they're creating a product, I want them to test it wherever they're going to be, where it should be. So for example, if they're reading storybooks, then I want them to maybe read those to their peers, give them the rubric, have them grade them on the same rubric that I'm going to grade them on. For our statewide design challenge, we assemble a group of industry professionals to give them feedback on their presentation before they ever submit anything to TSIN. So they give them a lot of feedback, they make revisions, then they go and they do their video for TSIN and submit it.
Yeah, we even had Riley Adams, who was a previous year winner, sit on the panel. So they had peers sitting on the panel as well. Not just industry professionals, but students that had been through that process previously.
Testing solutions to see if that meets the criteria and the constraints. So this is a great time to bring in some statistical analysis, mean, median, mode, range. Those pair very nicely when you're trying to see if Let's say you have a mark that you want to make, so you want to design, a puzzle to occupy someone's time, 5 minutes. Mean, median, mode would show you if you're meeting that mark or not.
Now, the final component here, all this is leading up to taking that product that they've worked very diligently on and informing the public about it. We want you to understand, like with the informed component, if at all possible, this needs to be as public as you can make it. You guys are doing amazing things inside the walls of your schools. Your students are doing amazing things. And the community needs to see that. Parents need to see that. Other students at other schools need to see that. So with the informed component, make it public. Okay, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do that. We try to partner, Dobyns-Bennett and Excel, we try to partnership with community members. That could be business leaders in the community, school board members. We partner with the Chamber of Commerce all the time for certain projects. So build those relationships. And that does so, I mean, this is it takes a village. So, making those community partnerships is vital. So get those industry professionals in, and it could even mean just at the school at large, rather than just presenting their product to your class, present it to, other classes in the school. So there's different levels and different scales of those presentations, but make it public, okay? And also that does a couple things. It makes the students that are involved take ownership a little bit more. It raises the stakes. You're not just presenting it to me, so what? You're presenting it to the leaders in your community. You're presenting it to your peers around the school. So they're more engaged, there's more buy-in for the students, and it raises the stakes to make them care a little bit more. And it also shows, it takes it from the abstract. It's not just information ideas in a book that we've talked about in class or read on a page, but they actually see application of these ideas and concepts. It's more concrete rather than simply just abstract. Does that make sense? Okay.
So just a couple of examples. We have did you say anything about the teen takeover?
Yeah, in the bottom right-hand corner here, it's kind of hard to see, but in Kingsport, we have the Kingsport Times-News. It's our local periodical. And our journalism class, they partner with the Kingsport Times-News, and they'll have what's called Teen Takeover. And from the journalism class, they'll write articles about local issues and community things that are going on, and they'll actually publish it and put it out there in the paper. It's an amazing project that our journalism teacher, Luke Brogdon, has put together.
This is the biology class. They created books, and we partnered with one of our local elementary schools. They tailor books to the interests of these students about different environmental issues. They came, they met them, found out what they're interested in, tried to incorporate that into the books, came back, read it to them, presented them with books that they created. This is our BioBuilder team, and this is them presenting at MIT. They designed a bacteria that produces a purple pigment in the presence of nitrates and nitrites. Here are some of the digital arts artwork, along with our assembly of industry professionals and students that gave feedback to our students at for the statewide design challenge.
Yeah, the one on the left there was for a concert series in Kingsport, and that was actually on a billboard that was designed by a student at DBE in their graphic arts department, and was on a billboard for the community. And think about like the sense of accomplishment and pride that the student had. I mean, I couldn't even imagine that. That's really cool. So getting out in the public and allowing them to see some of the amazing work the students are doing just blows me away.
And here are some ornaments that they designed for the Christmas tree at the White House. So there's like a Tennessee tree at the White House, and they designed those ornaments for.
Okay.
And where are we at on time? We've got about
5 minutes, I believe.
So we'll blaze through these.
We wanted to show you just a few examples of how to implement the design thinking process. Design thinking and PBLs, project-based learning, goes hand in hand with one another. This is one that I did with my world history class. We were talking about the Industrial Revolution, and our overarching question here, our problem was, what is the true impact of the products we buy? So we looked at different levels of production and how the Industrial Revolution has changed the way that we consume and produce things. So we track the making of a T-shirt from genetically modified seed in Wisconsin to being grown in Mississippi to being harvested and shipped to Indonesia and Bangladesh and Colombia and then back to the United States for a relatively low price. And that's a result of the Industrial Revolution. So they had to do all this research. They had to research the economic, social, political, and environmental impacts of this product. And they had to create a magazine article on certain products. Some of them chose coffee or chocolate. Some of them chose sheen clothing and different things like that. But they had to create a magazine article, which was then peer-reviewed by their classmates. And after the magazine article presentation, we had a discussion panel where it was open to the floor from questions from the other groups. So that was, like I said, this is a history class. Don't tell me you can't implement this and I'm a history teacher, I can't do that. Yes, you can. Like I said, a lot of you guys use elements of this in lots of different ways. This is just kind of formalizing it into the design thinking process. You can implement this in everything.
So I skipped over, I'm just gonna go ahead and skip over
go for
the English. So this is biology. Again, these were the books that they did. This is them meeting the kids and asking them what their interests are. They went back, they created books, they came back, they read them, and the elementary school kids love that, and they really surprised me with how sweet they were and interactive they were with them, and it really made them buy in to wanting to create these books and learn these things. This is another one that I do. I do a smaller scale one in my classroom where they have to pick one of the world's problems and they have to solve it with a GMO. So they have to pick the genes, they have to pick the DNA technology, they have to pick the organism that they're going to put it into. And here we have a picture of, it's actually a student, Michael Sheets from Boston College, and he's Skyping with my students, giving them feedback on their projects before they presented them. We also do an after-school club of this that does them to a much higher level. And then here's one of the toy designs that they did in engineering. We have motion graphs to help us, see will it do the motion that we want it to. So the different phases all mapped out here. Do you all have any questions for us? Oh, we wanted to do a raffle. Oh, yeah.
We got the most important part coming up, the drawing of the name.
This is a book. It's called Brainstorming, and it has a lot of these different structures in them to help with the design process in PBL, help facilitate those different phases. It's actually used in the industry. It's more for businesses and things like that, but we use it in the classroom.
All right, Nick, what do we got?
All right, so our two winners for these books are Tammy Estrada and Stephanie Janko. You'll go see them up front.
Come on up. Yeah, there's one. Thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate it, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the conference. Thank you so much.